കൊല്ലീസും കില്ലീസും ഒന്നും ഇല്ലാത്ത ഒരുപാട് കടപ്പുറം ഗൾഫിലുണ്ട്. അത് ഗഫൂറിന് നല്ലപോലെ അറിയാം. നിങ്ങൾ ഒരൊറ്റ കാര്യം ചെയ്താൽ മതി. 2 അറിവിന്റെ ഡ്രസ്സ് കരുതണം.
അതെന്തിനാണാവോ?
കര പറ്റിയാൽ ഉടനെ അറബിക്കുപ്പായത്തിട്ടോളി. അറബിക്കുപ്പായക്കാരൻ ഏത് പോലീസാണ് പിടിക്കുക? അതെ. പിന്നെ അത്യാവശ്യം ചില അറബി വാക്കുകൾ ഞാൻ ഇപ്പൊ പഠിപ്പിച്ചു തരാം. ഒന്നുമില്ല. അസ്സലാമു അസ്സലാമു
അസ്സലാമു
അലൈക്കും
അലൈക്കും
വഅലൈക്കും
വഅലൈക്കും
മുസ്സലാം മുസ്സലാം മതി.
Hello my dear students, this is Vishwas. Today we are going to learn some of the basic concepts of Russian formalism. Formalism is a school of literary criticism and literary theory which studied the text of literary works without taking into account any outside influences like the biography of the author, the history or social situation when the work was written. Now, how did formalism come into being? What is the origin of formalism? Formalism emerged as a reaction against the methods of literary scholarship of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. It was against the belief that the content and ideas of literary works were faithful reflections of social and political reality. Thus, formalism rejected the study of literature's context or background, its external conditions, and the details of the author. Instead, it proposed a focus on the literary work itself and a study of the formal components which made up that work. As a movement in literary studies and a school of literary theory and analysis, formalism emerged in Russia during the 1910s. In Russia, its official beginning was marked by an establishment of 2 organizations. Number 1, the Moscow Linguistic Circle, founded in 1915 by the linguists of Moscow University. Roman Jakobson was a prominent figure in this school. The second one, the Society for the Study of Poetic Language, or Opoyas, was founded in 1916 in Petrograd. Petrograd later became Leningrad and then it was renamed to St. Petersburg. The prominent figures in this school were Boris Eichenbaum, Victor Slosky, and others. What are the formal components or elements? Form means shape, but writing doesn't literally have a shape. Rather, when we talk about its shape or form, we are emphasizing how it's written rather than what it says. Think of a car. Cars come in lots of shapes and sizes, but they all do more or less the same thing. Get you from point A to point B. On the other hand, they emphasize different aspects of that basic task. What are your requirements? Do you want speed, efficiency, room for cargo, safety, flashy look, the comfort, leg room? So all these elements and more can be combined in several ways to produce a different driving experience. Similarly, all literature does similar things. They all tell a story or describe something, but in different ways. When you describe the way something is written as opposed to the meaning or information it conveys, you are talking about its formal properties. Simply put, choice equals style, and style is a formal property of literature. In drama, Besides the things mentioned here, we can also look at the staging, the lighting, set, props. In the case of poetry, we can look at the formal elements like rhythm, meter, rhyme, alliteration, assonance. We can, in the case of prose, you can look at the sentence structure, the paragraphs, and in prose, if you're talking about novels, you can talk about the point of view, the setting of the novel. So all these elements are brought into attention when we talk about formal analysis or formal elements. The formalist true concern was to reform literary study and make it a more scientific discipline. They attempted a science of literature by defining what the real subject of literary study is and by establishing its own methods of inquiry. They were trying to explain objectively why books delight us. They were trying to get rid of diluted subjective analysis of literary works which relied on statements like, this is a great work because Shakespeare wrote it. Formalists would try to examine Shakespeare's language, his craftsmanship, his vocabulary, plot elements, characters, so on, and then describe how all of these elements put together achieves a certain effect or effects, how the parts combine to form the whole text. Another important concept which we must be familiar with is literariness. What is literariness? According to Roman Jakobson, the proper subject matter of the discipline of this study of formalism is not literature itself, but a phenomenon called literariness. He declared that it is literariness that makes a given work a literary work. Literariness is a feature that distinguishes literature from other human creations. It is made of certain artistic techniques or devices employed in literary works. These devices became the primary object of the formalist analysis. For example, in the case of a novel, the literariness would be how did the author use the setting for the novel to communicate certain thoughts? What purpose did the flashback serve? What can we say about the plot twist? So all these elements, they are presented by the author in particular way, and this will constitute the literariness of that literary work. Another important concept is defamiliarization or ostranini. It means making strange. One of the most important literary devices with which the formalists dealt was the device of defamiliarization, as described by Victor Slawski in his essay Art as Device. Defamiliarization happens when we take an everyday object and present it in a way that is unfamiliar, so that we see the object in a new way. The poet rips away the veil of familiarity from the everyday objects of our world and thus allows us to see them afresh with childlike eyes of wonder. This renewed and prolonged aesthetic perception is the aim of art. Innovation in literary history is, according to Slawski, partly a matter of finding new techniques of defamiliarization. This concept was popularized by Wordsworth and Coleridge maybe a century back. We move over to the next concept focused upon by Victor Slawski. Apart from defamiliarization, he also talked about sujet and fabula. For Slawski, the sujet, it refers to the plot. The sujet is the fabula. Fabula is the story. Defamiliarized. I'll repeat. For Slawski, the sujet is the fabula. Defamiliarized. Now, what is the fabula? Fabula is basically the raw material of the story. And sujet is the way the story is organized. Fabula is the chronological order of the events. Suppose we consider the play Oedipus Rex. The fabula will begin from his birth and will consist of boring sequences of events, one after the other, his childhood, how he went here, there. So it's a very sequential order of events that happens to Oedipus, and it's quite long, and many events will be insignificant for us. But the sujet, the plot of Oedipus Rex, is about this king who is trying to save his kingdom from plague and finds the truth at the end of it. It's a play about self-discovery. The defamiliarized plot causes the reader to pay attention and to see the story in a new, unjaded way. ഇതുകൊണ്ടാണ് നമ്മൾ പലപ്പോഴും സിനിമകൾ കാണുമ്പോൾ ഒരു കഥ പഴയ കഥയാണ്, പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് രസമൊന്നുമില്ല എന്ന് പറയാറുണ്ട്. പക്ഷേ അതിൻ്റെ മെയിൻ സംഭവമൊക്കെ ഒന്ന് തന്നെയായിരിക്കാം. പക്ഷെ ഒരു വ്യത്യസ്തമായ രീതിയിൽ പറയുമ്പോൾ നമുക്ക് കൊള്ളാലോ, നല്ലൊരു കഥ പറച്ചിലായിരുന്നു. അതാണ് ആ ഡിഫറൻസ് വരുന്നത്. Both of these concepts are attempts to describe the significance of the form of a literary work in order to define its literariness. What differentiates literature from non-literature? Literaryness separates poetic language or literature from common everyday language. The formalists compared the language of imaginative literature, especially poetry, with the language of everyday conversations to present the specific function assigned to language phenomena in literature. Colloquial language, they indicated, serves purely communicative purposes, whereas in poetry, this communicative function of language is reduced to a minimum. That is why Jacobson defined poetry as a language in its aesthetic function. He also said that the language of poetry is oriented towards itself and draws attention to its own properties. By the end of 1930s, the formalists in Russia had been silenced as the separation of literature from social concerns did not sit well with the Russian Marxists. So let's sum up as to what did these people do. A formalist critic examines the form of the work as a whole, the form of each individual part of the text, which consists of the characters, the settings, the tone, the point of view, the diction, and all other elements of the text, which join to make it a single text. After analyzing each part, the critic then describes how they work together to make or give meaning, which gives a theme of the text. The formalists claim that form and content are inseparable and that they constitute one unity. However, they were primarily focusing on studying form. In the next class, we will look at the American school of formalism, which is known as New Criticism.
ഇനി വൈകണ്ട, നീന്താനുള്ള ട്രൗസറും മുപ്പായിട്ട് വേഗം ചാടിക്കോളി. ആ കാണാണ് ദുബായ്.